not very clear. So a huge amount of our focus has been on making the pricing for AI a lot more transparent to our clients. And if we're doing a significant project that is utilizing AI tools, how much of the benefit the client is getting is really coming from the use of digital labor, and how much is really the traditional tools like offshoring and greater productivity.
So when you talk about this pricing change and this commercial model change that is expected on account of more adoption of AI as well as more transparency, on the part of companies like yours on the use of AI, what does that mean, and what are we talking about? What could this potentially look like in the next 3-5 years?
So I think over the next 3 or 5 years, what you will have is for every kind of program, right? Let's say you're doing a data migration program. For a data migration program, I can go and tell the client, this is the human labor I will be using to deliver this program, right? This is the, the subject matter expert, the program manager, the analyst, the developers. On the other hand, this is the digital labor I'll be using, right? These are the models I'll be using, and therefore this is the token consumption that will result from these models. Some of these models will be, the client's models, some of them will be ours, some of them could come from a Snowflake or a Databricks, right?
Okay.
And the combination of the two is the price. See, just now we're just giving one price to the client, which is largely based on labor.
Labor,
right?
yeah.
Exactly.
So what does this also then mean in terms of human labor? I mean, we've seen, your peers, some reducing headcount quite significantly in comparison to others, some actually adding headcount.
Yeah.
How do you see this mix change over the next 5 years?
Look, I feel that the overall size of the pie will expand, so this should still be a growth industry from an employment perspective as far as the overall industry is concerned.
What about you specifically?
I feel if I look at TechM, for instance, right, look, we have one big advantage in the sense that all of our clients are talking about the fact that now with AI coming in, the premium for experienced talent has gone up even further, right? Because experienced talent can pick up AI tooling a lot faster. And so given that our average experience is 9 to 10 years, that's a huge plus for us. And I see most of the industry migrating to, to that model. Having said that, if there is going to be indeed an AI tailwind for the industry and a significant amount of modernization and transformation programs, that should allow for an expansion in the industry size. I do feel that over time, the demand for for experienced talent in this industry will continue to go up.
So Plan Fortuous, that is underway at this point in time. Is a new plan being worked on? Is that being given shape as well as you close this one out?
Yes. Obviously, we have to deliver a new plan. I feel that we will deliver it once the FY27 plan has been successful, because there's no point in declaring a new plan when the old one is still some ways to go. I do feel that for the new plan, we will try and do the same thing, right, which is make it, sort of aggressive and credible at the same time. I do feel that with this 3-year plan, right, we had a very aggressive plan and we had very little time. And I feel that that really helped us get to, that's helping us on the path. For FY30, we are giving some thought, and I feel that the plan will largely be about continued margin expansion, but a much more focused direction on growth.
Much more focused direction on growth as well as margin expansion. Well, we wish you the very best of luck as you close out this plan and start work on the next one. And you've been more careful this time around. So we're going to have to wait to see how the year pans out. But Mohit, always a pleasure. Thanks very much for joining us here on CNBC-TV18. Look forward to more conversations with you. Well, the issue of how do you actually measure the use of AI and how Indian IT services companies are going to build that in is the big question. And I think Mohit Joshi has given us a clear indication of how Tech Mahindra intends to do that. We are going to take a break here on our coverage here live from Davos 2026. Don't go anywhere. More headliners and newsmakers coming up right after this short break.
Hello and welcome to Business 360. I'm Archana Solanki. Here are the headlines we're tracking this evening. Davos feels the chill as the World Economic Forum kicks off, with President Trump putting Europe on notice, threatens additional tariffs on nations opposing his plans to annex Greenland. Trump also tells Norway he no longer feels an obligation to think purely of peace after the Nobel Prize snub. Leaders of 8 European nations slam Trump's tariff threat over Greenland and consider retaliatory measures. French President Macron calls for activating a trade bazooka against Washington. British Prime Minister Starmer denounces the tariff threat but calls for a calm discussion. International Monetary Fund raises India's growth outlook for this fiscal to 7.3%, also raises the forecast for global growth to 3.3%, flags tariffs and a potential market correction due to AI as key risks to growth. Sensex and Nifty decline in trade after earnings from heavyweights failed to impress the street. All sectoral indices end in the red, barring auto and FMCG. Rupee weakens against the dollar and moves closer to the 91 mark. Sun Pharma is looking to acquire US-based biosimilar firm Organon Pharma, valued at $10 billion. CNBC Avaz reports the deal is likely to involve acquisition of stake or purchase of select assets of Organon. Indigo's stock is a top Nifty gainer today after government imposes a 22 crore rupee penalty over mass cancellations of flights in early December, which left nearly 9 lakh passengers stranded. Pilots Association says the penalty is not commensurate with the chaos caused by the airline. Indian IT CEOs are upbeat at Davos. HCL Tech's Vijay Kumar expects billion-dollar opportunities thankful to artificial intelligence. Tech Mahindra's Mohit Joshi expects his company's growth to beat the industry average and says gloom and doom around IT has lifted. Suzlon's Girish Tanti announces the appointment of a new CEO for Europe on CNBC-TV18 live from Davos, charts a hybrid future for the company as it hopes to transition from being just a wind energy player. That's an exclusive. At least 39 people are dead after 2 high-speed trains collide in southern Spain. More than 100 people injured and 12 are critically wounded. The top story first. The alpine town of Davos feels the chill as the World Economic Forum kicks off, with US President Donald Trump putting Europe on notice, doubling down on his Greenland annexation ambitions. President Trump had over the weekend threatened to levy additional tariffs on 8 European nations opposing his plans. A spirit of dialogue is the key theme at the annual huddle of the global elite, something Trump has made a mockery of since he returned to the White House for a second presidency. The U.S. president is also leading the nation's largest ever contingent to Davos. He will be accompanied by Treasury Secretary Bessent, Commerce Secretary Lutnick, among other top officials. He is also scheduled to address the gathering at Davos on Wednesday. Leaders of 8 European nations slammed President Trump's tariff threat over Greenland and hinted at the retaliatory measures. French President Emmanuel Macron has called for activating a trade bazooka against Washington, while British Prime Minister Keir Starmer called for a calm discussion. Washington, however, is confident that Europe will come around on Greenland. Trump also linked his plans to annex Greenland to the Nobel Peace Prize Committee, snubbing him. In a letter to the Prime Minister of Norway, Trump said, and I quote, "Considering your country decided not to give me the Nobel Prize for having stopped 8 wars, plus, I no longer feel an obligation to think purely of peace. Although it will always be predominant, but can now think about what is good and proper for the United States of America." End of quote. Here is the war of words between US and Europe on Greenland.
European leaders will come around and they will understand that they need to be under the U.S. security umbrella. What would happen in Ukraine that if the U.S. pulled its support out? The whole thing would collapse. That the U.S., Kristen, to be clear, Since 1980, the U.S. has spent U.S. military spending versus NATO military spending. We have spent $22 trillion more than the Europeans have. That we are peace through strength. And the Europeans now are only trying to play catch up. And that is only through President Trump. President Trump believes in NATO, but he does not believe in the American people being dragged in.
On Greenland, the right way to approach an issue of this seriousness is through calm discussion between allies. And let's be clear, the security of Greenland matters. The use of tariffs against allies is completely wrong. It is not the right way to resolve differences within an alliance. Nor is it helpful to frame efforts to strengthen Greenland's security as a justification for economic pressure.
I think you must follow more than one track. I mean, we have been asking since the very beginning of this to have a constructive dialogue with our American ally and friends, free from social media and headlines and strong words. And we opened that dialogue last week. We will not give up on that.
We're concerned about this escalation, to be absolutely clear. We always will support sovereignty and territorial integrity of countries wherever their geographic location is.
Now, top economists and thought leaders also weighed in on the tensions between the US president and European nations at Davos. Harvard professor Kenneth Rogoff said that he's never seen European leaders this upset in all the years that he has been coming to Davos. Eurasia Group founder Ian Bremmer explained how Trump essentially alternates between two modes of foreign policy.
Trump has two different modes of foreign policy. He's got the FAFO mode, fool around and find out, which you get if you're Venezuela and Ukraine. He's got the taco mode, Trump always chickens out, which you get if you're Russia or you're China. Right now, Trump believes that the Europeans are FAFO, and the Europeans need to convince Trump that they are actually taco. And that is going to require both military response and economic response that is strong, unified, and credible. We will see this week what we get.
I've been coming to Davos for 25 years now. I have never seen the Europeans so upset. I mean, when Putin invaded Ukraine, they were very upset. This is a whole nother level. He's invading Greenland, and oh, you know, there are 56,000 people. I mean, then he's going to take Switzerland. Then he's going to let Putin take the Baltics. Then he's going to let Putin take Poland. Then he's going to, you know, take Spain. I mean, it's just, you know, absolute frenzy. They're hysterical.
Right. The International Monetary Fund has revised India's growth forecast to 7.3% for the current fiscal year. The IMF has also projected global economic growth to moderate to 6.4% in FY27. Ritu Singh joins us now with more details. Ritu, please take us through this report.
Well, the IMF's latest World Economic Outlook shows India leading the growth story. India's GDP growth has been revised up to 7.3% for FY26, driven by a stronger than expected third quarter and solid momentum in Q4 as well. Growth is then projected to moderate to 6.4% in FY27 and remain there in FY28 as cyclical factors ease. Now, globally, growth is holding steady. The IMF now sees 3.3% global GDP growth in 2026, which is up 20 basis points from October, and 3.2% in 2027. But the steady headline numbers are masking the divergent forces that are at play. Trade policy shifts are a headwind, but AI and tech-led investments provide a strong tailwind, particularly in North America and parts of Asia. Advanced economies are expected to grow 1.8% this year, and emerging markets by 4.2%, with China and India driving much of the momentum. Inflation is projected to ease globally from 4.1% last year to 3.8% this year and 3.4% next year, while world trade growth slows down before recovering. A key driver of global resilience, though, is US's investment in information technology, particularly in AI, now at its highest share of GDP since 2001. Now, this surge, IMF IMF says is boosting business activity and also spilling over to Asia's tech exports. The IMF says that on the upside, faster AI adoption can lift global growth by 0.3 percentage points, but on the downside, any AI correction can also shave off 0.4 percentage points. Overall, risks to the outlook are to the downside. Besides AI, any renewed trade tensions, geopolitical shocks that could drag growth. And the report even makes a reference to what seems to be the ongoing tensions between the US president and Fed chief, warning that any political interference in independent economic institutions can raise the risk of policy mistakes and erode public confidence.
Right. Thank you, Ritu, for that. Shifting focus now, Harvard professor and economist Kenneth Rogoff expects that either White House economic advisor Kevin Hassett or former Fed Governor Kevin Warsh will head the Federal Reserve next. Speaking with Shireen Bhan at Davos, he also said that Fed independence remains fragile.
DOJ investigation into the central bank's operations in the US. I mean, we saw the markets react to that, but what do you believe will be the medium-term to long-term implications of how this plays out on central bank independence?
I think it's important to understand that both sides in the US, the progressives, the left, the Democrats, and I want to call MAGA Republicans, neither of them like central bank independence. The Biden administration was pushing the Federal Reserve to do social justice, the environment, inequality, far outside its remit and distracted from its main problems. And I think they were, if I teach at Harvard and I talk to these progressive intellectual leaders, and they would like to bring the Fed back into the Treasury and be able to control it. And Trump does for completely different reasons. I mean, Fed independence is a pretty new thing. I actually think I wrote the first paper on it 40 years ago, and there weren't independent central banks. And I think it's worked very well, but it's fragile.
Do you have a guess on who could replace Jerome Powell?
I mean, I had thought it was 80% it would be Kevin Hassett, who I think is a very good economist, by the way. A lot of my colleagues don't like him because they think he's too Trumpy, but I think we're going to get someone Trumpy, and Hassett is actually quite a good economist, and I think he'd be fine in the job. But that said, Trump made this announcement, I love you, Kevin. You're so good on TV. But when you're in the Fed, you're never on TV. I want to see you on TV. I'm sorry. But this is what you just never know what he intends. But it could be Kevin Warsh, who
I was going to ask you, one of the Kevins.
Yeah, I mean, Kevin Warsh would be a very strong appointment. Also, there's one or two other names. I have no idea. I mean, look, Trump is the master of theater. This is one of his big announcements. He's making the most of it. But I may be wrong, I still bet on Hassett.
Tech Mahindra MD and CEO has said that the company is confident of beating the industry's average growth. Speaking with Shireen Bhan on the sidelines of the Davos summit, Mohit Joshi said that the gloom and doom around the IT services sector has been lifted. He added that the company will announce a transparent and credible metric for pricing the use of AI into deals. Meanwhile, HCL Tech CEO and MD C. Vijay Kumar believes AI is at an inflection point. While he's excited about new opportunities in the tech vertical, he sees billion-dollar opportunities in AI in the coming years.
I do feel that we have enough levers still to pull to deliver the margin, but equally we also want to focus on growth, because the second part of the plan is about achieving higher than peer average growth, which actually we
What does that mean in percentage terms?
Well, it depends on whatever the peer average is going to be, right? Sadly, I do not want to be caught out twice in a row with forecasting very high growth rates for the industry. But whatever the peer average is, and I feel that the consensus just now is for somewhere between 3 to 5 to 4 to 6% for the industry, so higher than the average is what we're aiming for. And even with the analyst community, I feel the sense that AI will now be a tailwind for the IT services industry is gaining hold as compared to sort of the view,
that it was all gloom and doom.
That, it's sort of borderline suicidal, right?
We've been very proactively looking at how to transform our services without worrying about any potential deflation or cannibalization of existing revenue streams. But what's even more exciting is a lot of completely new opportunities. Like in the tech vertical, there is close to $1 trillion of capex. Now, every one of these big programs will need significant services in terms of planning out data centers, the professional services, the GPU infrastructure, and the managed services around that. I think that's what we call as AI factory. That's a brilliant, very big opportunity. It could very easily be $1 billion revenue stream for us in the coming years. And there are many such revenue streams that we've identified, and it's still early days.
Right, time for a short break. Coming up next, the Indigo stock was the top Nifty gainer today after government imposed a 22 crore rupee penalty over mass cancellations of flights. Details in just a bit. Welcome back. Bharat Coking Coal made a stellar Dalal Street debut, listing at a premium of over 96% on the bourses. The coal mining company's market capitalization rose by 360 crore rupees. However, profit booking pulled the stock slightly lower before the end of trade today. The PSU's IPO was subscribed 147 times, driven by strong demand from institutional and high net worth investors. In earnings, Hindustan Zinc has reported a strong set of numbers in the third quarter, beating street estimates across all parameters. Net profit rose over 46%, while revenue jumped more than 27% on an annual basis. Margins expanded significantly during the quarter. And staying with earnings, Bharat Heavy Electricals has reported a strong set of numbers in the third quarter, with net profit rising 190% to 390 crore rupees. Revenue also rose over 16%. EBITDA soared 79% on an annual basis. Now, Interglobe Aviation was the top Nifty gainer today after the aviation regulator DGCA imposed a 22.5 crore rupee penalty on the airline as a probe found regulatory lapses behind the massive flight disruptions in December. The airline cancelled over 4,500 flights in the first week of December, which left 9 lakh passengers stranded in airports across the country. Shivani Bajaj has more. Shivani, please tell us more about the DGCA's directions to Indigo.
The aviation regulator DGCA has finally taken the enforcement action against Indigo, imposing a total penalty of 22.2 crore rupees over the massive flight disruptions that we saw in early December. Now, this includes 20.4 crore rupees for 68 days of continued violation of flight duty time limitation norms, levied at a maximum permissible rate of 30 lakh rupees per day, along with an additional 1.8 crore rupees one-time systemic penalty for broader operational and management failure. Beyond this, the monetary fine, DGCA has also directed Indigo to furnish a 50 crore rupees bank guarantee with phased release linked to DGCA monitored systemic reforms across leadership, oversight, crew rostering and digital systems as well. Now, the financial impact might seem mild at this point, but let's look at the broader picture. It is significant. Indigo had already said that it has paid over 500 crore rupees in passenger compensation for cancellations and long delays and has processed around 610 crore rupees in refunds till December 7. Mind you, refund outgo is expected to rise further from here. Taking together the penalty compensation and refunds and the compliance-linked safeguards, Indigo's total financial exposure now stands at 1,180 crore rupees. So the 22 crore rupees penalty might seem mild, but the overall exposure stands at 1,180 crore rupees. Back to you.
Right. Thank you, Shivani, for that. Shifting focus now, US President Donald Trump has invited Prime Minister Narendra Modi to join the newly created Gaza Board of Peace. This international body is tasked with overseeing Gaza's demilitarization, humanitarian relief and rebuilding infrastructure. The invitation was shared by US Ambassador Sergio Gore and has come as part of the second phase of the Israel-Hamas ceasefire. Similar letters have been sent to other world leaders as well. However, Trump has said that participating nations will have to shell out $1 billion to have a permanent seat on the board. UAE President Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed has arrived in India for a day-long visit. The Ministry of External Affairs said the visit will allow the President to speak with Prime Minister Modi about the comprehensive strategic partnership between the UAE and India. This will be Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed's third official visit since assuming office as UAE President and his fifth in the past decade. At least 39 people were killed and more than 150 injured after a high-speed train derailed and collided with an oncoming train in southern Spain. The crash happened yesterday and emergency crews raced to the scene immediately. The disaster has also crippled Spain's rail network, forcing the cancellation of more than 200 train services and severely disrupting key routes between Madrid and southern cities. And with that, it's a wrap on this edition of Business 360. News and updates continue right here on CNBC-TV18. Thank you for watching.